You're tearing me apart! Rebel Without a Cause. Coming up next. Haven't Seen It with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevenet. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time, and today that is Tommy, on his request, mind you.
Yeah.
Rebel Without a Cause. I feel like people are going to see this in our queue list and be like, oh, Tim forced Tommy to watch a movie from the 1950s, but that's not the case.
This time it was me. Yeah, shocker. I mean, no one would have thought that.
So I've saved this question for this podcast. I hinted it at you before, and you said it's not interesting, so you can embellish a little bit if you want. But what made you go, I really need to check out James Dean? Like, I need to see a James Dean performance.
I need the James Dean experience. So basically on Friday night, I had a bunch of friends over to watch a movie night. We did movie roulette, the classic movie game we always talk about in this pod. The category was sports movie, and it didn't really fit into the categories, but we were talking about James Dean at one point, and then one of my buddies was like, dude, like, you haven't seen Rebel Without a Cause? It's actually great and amazing, like really fun. And like drunk me was like, I guess I got watch Rebel Without a Cause. I think I texted you at like 10 o'clock at night on like a Friday.
Yeah, you just texted me out of the blue being like, can we cover Rebel Without a Cause? I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, I haven't seen this since college, maybe. I know I've seen it before. I just can't remember when I actually watched it.
Yeah. At that point, I was like 2 or 3 drinks deep in. I was just like, we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. Oh my God. We got to see Rebel Without a Cause. So this was a fun movie. I mean, I've always talked in the past about how like sometimes older movies take like a rewatch or two for me to fully appreciate, but I did not feel that case here. This movie is just like really riveting and plays really well. It feels almost modern in a way, which I didn't expect whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels it. The pacing of it is probably the biggest surprise, I would say. And I think we were texting about this before during our subsequent watches of this movie, where if like the 1950s is kind of the invention of the teenage culture, when that starts to kind of drive a lot of markets and a lot of attention, because that's just where blatant consumerism is. So it just becomes this real centerfold of attention in a way that really didn't exist beforehand. And then that just generational divide between parents and children, like that story just will live on now for in perpetuity in America at least. And this is kind of like the start of that. And I think for us, like, we don't think of the 1950s as this like rebellious phase. Like, we kind of think of we probably associate that with like the late 1960s, with that really starting.
Our 1950s like style is basically like we think of like Pleasantville or something like that, like a ton of conformity, everyone moving to the suburbs. But when we really think about like modern life started in the 1950s. I mean, obviously things have gotten different and everything like that, but over the years. But
yeah, I mean, it was better back then. You could afford a home.
Yeah, it was that.
you could drive a mail truck and afford a home with like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a front and backyard.
They're just giving out homes to everyone.
And your wife stays at home, and that's not the case anymore. But yeah. I do feel like this movie, I feel like its signature is James Dean, and I want to talk about him because he's almost in a way like I think of him more in the ebbs of like the Jimi Hendrix, the Janis Joplins, the Kurt Cobains, the Jim Morrisons, like these rock stars who kind of just died. Like I kind of put him in that class where he just kind of tragically died. This is his third and final motion picture. Like, this movie came out a month after he died, which kind of crazy also, to just like the star of your movie dies tragically in a car crash. And then you're just like, yeah, I mean, we're not moving the release schedule.
This actually came out after he died.
That's what I'm saying. A month after.
Oh yeah, I thought you said a month before. Yeah, this is insane to think about, because like James Dean at this point is kind of taken like a mythical figure in American culture.
Hmm. I feel like everybody knows his name, even if you're not really familiar with who he is, you've heard the name James Dean before. It's like it's got that Elvis Presley. It's in the lyrics to "We Didn't Start the Fire." It's got that mythos to it.
Well, it's like I was thinking of like who has been like the closest person to that sense outside of like musicians and stuff like that. But in terms of specifically actors, the one that I really think of is River Phoenix. Or River Phoenix was one of those people. Like he was almost in a way like the James Dean in the '90s in terms of the guy who just like had so much immense potential and showed it in like 2 or 3 like really good movies, and then just like burnt out immediately and like died, and like we were just robbed of so much talent. And it's kind of almost like better for the James Dean career that we didn't have like
Hmm.
him in his 60s or 70s and going old in his 80s, becoming one of those guys like, oh, the kids today like aren't the same as it was back then. Instead, he's just this youthful spirit forever in our minds and in American culture.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the death of a figure like this, like cut
Mm,
early, cut tragically, like we don't like they can live in that spirit. It's part of the reason why, like I think of someone like Jim Morrison is like the epitome of it, where it's like he's this
mm.
like hippie poet. He just embodies that spirit in time. Like if Jim Morrison somehow was still alive today, and there are rock stars from his era still alive today. Rest in peace, Bob Weir just passed away. Very as
Mm.
a deadhead, fare thee
And
well.
broken up, yeah,
Yeah, I was upset, but
yeah.
he like Jim Morrison would probably be such an insufferable human being if he was alive today.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he
It,
would
it,
be saying the most pretentious bullshit or something like that.
yeah, and just there is some, it's obviously very sad to talk about these people's deaths, but there
Mm,
is when it's becomes iconography and we're discussing it in that realm, their death works in their favor.
mm. And it's almost like we're seeing a home movie of just like this like godlike figure almost.
Yeah, it's like because you know what? I don't know what James Dean thinks about avocado toast. I don't know what Jim Morrison thinks about avocado toast and how
Yeah, yeah.
millennials are spending too much money at Starbucks. Like that opinion just doesn't exist because it didn't exist at the time and they didn't care at the time because they were 24. They were just these like young self-centered kids.
Well, it's like the fact that, like, we've seen most of the guys from The Who become, like, old, where, like, their famous song was "My Generation." I hope I
Yeah.
die before I get old, and then you have Roger Daltrey bitching about the younger generation and Exit and all this stuff, where it's just like, "Oh, dude, like, younger you would have been like, 'Who the hell is this geezer?'" And
Yeah.
so, again, we just don't have this with, like, these specific pop culture figures, which makes this movie even cooler because the movie also is about, like, a troubled youth, and the guy
Mhm.
dies and makes it, like, take another stand. Kinda like with River Phoenix, where Stand By Me has this almost, like, weird feature to it where it's just like, yeah, River Phoenix, like, he was, stood out so much, and then now he's gone. He died early.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like James Dean though, like he's River Phoenix is a great performer. I'm not taking anything away from him. James Dean has this effortless
Oh, he's
quality.
he's he's on another
This is one of those where, like, if I was a Hollywood executive, I'd be like, "Cha-ching! Here we go. I got my next guy for the next decade." Like this, like he was about to go to the stratosphere. He was about to be on that Brando level.
mm.
Um, and
Brando's another one. We saw Brando become, like, old and fat and, like, bitching at Frank Oz on, like, a set of a movie, calling him Miss Piggy.
yeah, well, listen, Brando's a one of one. Okay, Brando is infamously like the most difficult human being to work with. Like
Yeah.
insanely talented, but just awful, just
Mhm,
completely awful uh, to deal with. But just like this immense talent. When they bought the rights to this book, which was written by a psychiatrist. It was called it's called Rebel Without a Cause. It's hang on, it's Rebel Without a Cause, the hypoanalysis of a criminal psychopath. That was the name of the book. So they kind of like took
mm.
this adaptation of like where youth culture was going and kind of taking it into another way. So Brando actually did a 5-minute screen test for the studio in 1947 with just like a partial script. Um, there was no offer ever made. So the screen test is on the 2006 special edition DVD of the 1951 film A Streetcar Named Desire. So that does still live on, like the potential of
Mm,
Marlon Brando taking on this iconic role,
mm.
which is just kind of a funny tidbit, funny note.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the James Dean of it all, like he was set up for basically like a Jim Carrey like breakout. Obviously, he's not a comedic star, but if you catch my drift, like basically he had
Mhm.
3 movies come out where he was the lead and star. And I feel like all those became like, except for maybe the last one, Giant, East of Eden, and Rebel Without a Cause are movies that are still talked about today. Rebel Without a
Yeah,
Cause is an iconic movie where like this is the fact that like we're talking about this 70 years later and it's
I
still just like
the last great reference of this movie is for those who remember and have. I know a lot of our listeners have seen this movie. Is La La Land.
literally, yeah.
Like the whole Griffith Observatory part of that movie is an homage to this movie,
Mm,
and then you take into account the uh, like they go to the movie theater to watch Rebel Without a Cause. Like he takes her there on a date. So like that iconography is there. This is in The Sopranos. Rebel Without a
yeah.
Cause. There's the episode where Christopher takes an acting class, and he does that famous final monologue, crying to his father, and really like captures that performance. But that's Rebel Without a Cause, like living on. Um, I think this is interesting. I'm gonna go into what I've seen recently, and this is a movie I saw recently on a date night. I saw Zootopia 2.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a fun.
Oh,
It's
this
a
is
fun.
fun segue.
It's a well. I got a point. Okay,
Okay.
it's a fun family movie. I saw the original one when it came out. I was like, oh, it's good. Kind of the same reaction. There's a point in Zootopia 2 where I think she was the villain in the last one. She was like the Silence of the Lambs. She was like a lamb. So in this one, they're doing a present break. They give her a cameo, and she's in there like Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lamb, and it's like this 15-second cameo, which just or reference like okay, all the adults are gonna get it, ha ha ha. Then it came out like 2 weeks after the movie came out. Like somebody who worked on the movie said like, yeah, we actually had like a 4 minute like line for line monologue from Silence of the Lambs, but we cut it out because we figured the kids wouldn't get that reference. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, especially in this age of um, hyper uh, unaware, like the monoculture that no longer exists. Like Zootopia is like one of the remain like those big Disney movies, the sequels to franchises people love. Like that's like the remainder of like whatever monoculture existed. Like think about if you gave that just a minute of the line, just like you make a pun on fava beans and Chianti, right? And then some
Yeah.
kid goes to his mom being like, or some teenager just like, what was that? Like what was that? And it's like, Mom, like, what was that? There was a scene with the fava beans and goes, oh, that's Silence of the Lambs. That's one of the greatest movies ever. What do you mean it's one of the greatest movies ever? It's like this, but I think of our generation, like
Well,
you,
it is funny that we were just talking about like younger figures become cranking about the old people. And
no, but
here we are.
no,
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 but
no. This is
I know
not,
what you mean, but our
I'm not crapping on younger people. Okay. Like they are growing up in a very difficult time to discover things. And I feel like it is the responsibility. It's more of the people who are like our age and working on it of being able to find and discover these films, like in keeping those messages onwards. Like I'm saying, like La La Land did. Like I'm saying, like I don't
Mm,
really remember when I watched Rebel Without a Cause, but you know what it might have been. It might have been after I saw La La Land and I fell in love with that movie, and then I was like, I should check out Rebel Without a Cause.
yeah, yeah.
Like I think that might
I
have been
also
when it
did
was.
watch. I also did watch La La Land like within the last 2 or 3 weeks. That probably was a little bit in the back of my head too.
Yeah,
Just
it's
jiggling.
probably there. So my point is like I think to like us growing up like watching cartoons, like we covered Nosferatu. Do you know where we learned about Nosferatu?
Yeah, and SpongeBob.
In SpongeBob. And then I remember talking to my girlfriend's younger brother and I was explaining Nosferatu and they like no idea.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Didn't you watch SpongeBob? Like, it was in SpongeBob. Like, that's how I learned about it." And you're like, "Huh?" Hands up.
Even we go back to the Animaniacs, we have Pinky and the Brain, where, the brain is, like, based off Orson Welles, a guy who died 10 years before that, but is still
Mhm.
just such a figure where, like, they continue to over and over again. But I feel like we don't have as many cartoons that they have, like, just, like, random celebrity impersonations where, like, Peter Lorre was a guy who, like, died in, like, the 1960s. Yeah, I know who he is because constantly, like, Tim Burton would have it in Corpse Bride or something like that, or, like, other stuff
Yeah.
over and over again where they have these references, and it's always a fun little thing where it's just like, for some reason, yeah, that guy's voice was great, like, I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if, like, 30 years from now, movies are still a thing, and Seth Rogen's voice was something like that, where, like, someone just
Yeah.
impersonates Seth Rogen.
No, seriously, because it's one of those things where we're gonna take it for granted. Like, we grew up with Seth Rogen as this comedy star that's kind of just turned into this huge producer role. Like, he's just kind of like just a big celebrity figure. Like,
Yeah.
our kids 30 years from now, like, our grandkids gonna know who Seth Rogen is? Like, they're not gonna discover that naturally. Like, imagine being like, "Yeah, Sonny, what one of the greatest movies of all time is? It's so funny. It's super bad. It came out in 2007." 2007?
Hey,
Ugh,
grandpa,
gross.
40 years ago, grandpa, get over it.
Yeah, like, that's going to happen. Like, I tell people to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and people have looked at me before and been like, "What year did that come out?" I'm like, "1946." And they're just like, "Ugh, no. Why would I watch that?" I'm like, "'Cause it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I promise you." Ugh, no. Ugh, gross.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just don't I feel like for me personally, like, I do have an admiration for history in general, especially I love learning about old film.
As we have the old retro podcast right here, where most of our movies are at least 30 years old.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
but I know what you mean. I feel like there's like a certain thing to like our like generation and like pretty much like we're the last vestige of like kids that constantly were watching cable. And one of the things of cable that probably taught us was like we just knew so much like lexicon of older
mm,
movies
yeah,
constantly. And for us, maybe it was more so like 90s, 80s movies, compared, but like I
and
feel like
70s sprinkled in there.
yeah, but I feel like when I talk to, like, most of my younger coworkers, they don't watch anything, like, old. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
they were like, just keep with the modern ones." Or it's like, Okay, I don't know, but you're missing, like."
They'll go see their Marvel movies and like, "Oh, new Indiana Jones. Okay, cool. Like, I'll go see that." But they're not really maybe the new Christopher Nolan seems to be the only director left that has that juice, that has that pull,
Yeah,
especially with like the success of Oppenheimer, and now you have the Odyssey coming, where you're just like, okay, yeah, this guy just he's gonna pull people in. But that was kind of tying back to my point that I was originally making with my segment. I actually think it was pretty smooth, if you ask me, Tommy.
mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Um, so what did you
So
watch this week?
I guess I'll talk about like keeping the theme of like getting too old. I watched a Chevy Chase movie this
Ooh,
over the weekend. And the one specifically that I watched was Vacation. First time I've seen that in probably like 10, 15 years.
it's a good one.
It holds up. It holds up, but it's just so funny that, like, it's almost not even shocking when you, like, think of some guys, like, became old cranks where it's just like, "Oh, Richard Dreyfuss and Chevy Chase are old cranks?" Yeah, that tracks completely. Because even this whole movie is, like, him being, like, snarky and stuff like that. He does shockingly have a few bits that, like, make him the butt of the joke, like, where he eats a sandwich, he's trying to be sexy in front of Christine Berkeley, and it's like, "Oh, the dog pissed in the sandwich." He's like,
Yeah,
he's really good at that, really good, but it's so funny that this became a guy that, like, pretty much ruined careers in Hollywood or, like, just, like,
he
was the
ruined his own
worst.
career. He ruined his
He
own
ru
career.
he ruined his own career, but he was, like directors, like, always, like, said, like, that was the worst experience of my life. Like, John Carpenter had to,
Oh
like, go
yeah.
through, like, therapy because of Memoirs of an Invisible Man, basically because like, Chevy Chase was such a monster to him.
Have
And
you
it's like, yeah,
watched? Have you watched the I'm Chevy Chase and You're Not?
I still on my radar. I think that's partly why I watched Vacation. I also just got the 4K, but it's one of those things where like, you hear all these stories are coming out of the woodworks now, where people are just like, "Oh god," like Chevy Chase. Even the person who did this documentary that just came out, like one of the first things he said was like, "You're not gonna get me because you're stupid."
Here's my thing though. Like,
Yeah.
is he a so I took a screenwriting class, and the teacher worked on the Chevy Chase show. I'm like, "He was telling us this." So no, and I go, "Well,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
was
yeah.
that like?" Because I've heard he's got a giant reputation as an asshole, and he was like, "To me, he was great. Like, I came with my work prepared. I didn't, like, try to be chummy. I didn't try to do any bullshit with him. I just gave him my work, and we went through it, and he respected me for it. So he was always
Mhm.
great to me, and I was like, "Wow, that's really interesting." Um, Here's my thing. I'm not making an excuse for Chevy Chase because especially when you hear about his stuff with Community, which it's such a shame because that's like a pinnacle high school show. I feel like for you and I, like I
Oh,
feel like
yeah,
we
yeah.
bonded over Community at the time when it came out. Like he's so good in that show.
Mm.
He's so good, and I like him with like the really heavily driven racial stuff is it's like very upsetting to hear. Um, but
Well,
there is
it's also like he had a chance, like pretty much like Community was the last grasp that Chevy Chase was ever going to be a huge star, or be
not
a
even a
star.
huge star.
Not
Just keep working.
keep working. He could have easily like there's a brief period where after Community or during Community, like he was in like Hot Tub Time Machine and stuff like that, where it's like he pop up as like a fun character actor or a fun little side piece, and he could have easily had the career that like Fred Willard had, for example, of just
Yeah,
like the fun old guy in all the
he'll be
comedy
some
TV shows.
he'll like Same thing. Rob Reiner. Just he'll be like a sitcom dad, like the dad for the main
Yeah.
character. Like he'll show up once or twice a year on each season. Like and it's just fun. It's like oh hey, there's Chevy.
But instead, he just like squandered it all, and pretty much the whole Community thing. It's just so sad. It's just such like a dumb old man thing where it's just
I
like,
but
dude,
here's my
what?
thing. He's like the last bastion of these really volatile personalities that just don't exist anymore because of the way the world operates. Because
Yeah,
there's always a camera phone, there's now always somebody who's looking for a story, that's looking for a source to find out like, "Hey, this person's a giant asshole." And, like, I'm not defending the behavior, but it is a little sad to me that, like, we might just lose the Hollywood asshole persona entirely.
yeah, yeah. There were people to be a little too clean, too sanitized. I mean, you still have the occasional stuff where it happened, but it's just like him, especially. He just has a reputation that follows him. It's just like, yeah, the worst thing I ever worked with was a thing with Chevy Chase. So,
Oh, it's, like,
um,
across the board too.
yeah, yeah.
It's not like it's not It's not like, "Oh, it happened once or twice when he was on drugs." It was like, no, he was just an asshole the entire time.
Constantly in and
The
out, where he just like bring people like fucking like Ivan Reitman was supposed to do Memoirs of an Invisible Man, and he didn't. Was like, I can't work with Chevy. And there's the thing where like he could have easily been on like Only Murders in the Building, but
Oh, yeah.
the other two amigos are like, life's too short.
Literally just, fuck that guy.
Yeah, yeah, we're not working with Chevy too.
There's no way. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
Original Vacation's great. A little sad that we're just gonna lose, like it sucks for the people that work with these people, but there is the fun for you and me, for example,
yeah.
in the, volatile Hollywood story. Like, think of Marlon Brando. Like, who do you think was more difficult to work with? Marlon Brando, Chevy Chase?
I feel
Like,
like
because
Chevy Chase. I feel.
I feel like it's Marlon Brando.
I think it's close. I think that, like, there's a certain way, like, I think it would've been easier to gain, like, Chevy Chase's respect or Marlon Brando's respect in a way, but, like, there's some characters where, like, I don't know, like, there's that story I told at the beginning of this pod where, Marlon Brando was basically, like, bullying Frank Oz on the set of, like, I think it was The Score.
Yeah,
This is, like, in 2002, and he wouldn't take any directions from him and just call him Miss Piggy.
like I mean, that's funny. I mean, he
And for
was
those who don't know,
hella.
Frank Oz is the voice of Miss Piggy.
I mean, he drove Francis Ford Coppola insane, like literally insane on the set of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, it sucks, but like there is a part of me that just it's like I'm gonna miss that guy. And it sucks because I actually like as a performer on the screen, like he is just so charmingly witty. It's effortless to him. It just
Well,
come
when to bring it back to Vacation, when you see that, it's just you'd see it just like bounce off the screen. You could see why this guy was so magnetic, so charismatic, and just like so charming in a way. It was like the asshole that you love to see just like shit happen to.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is funny where it's just like, yeah, there's a reason why Scream Persona was an asshole. It's like
Yeah.
The Tarantino thing. I don't know if you heard the Tarantino talk about this, um, where he said like the difference between Bill Murray movies and Chevy Chase movies is that Bill Murray characters go through a lesson and change by the end of the movie, but at the end of the movie, Chevy Chase is still the same asshole, and he didn't learn
Yeah.
anything. There's no growth for the Chevy Chase character.
It's very true. And like I mean, I know Bill Murray has like all of those guys from the 80s who were just on a ton of cocaine have all have a bit of a reputation to them, but it seems like Bill suffered in the 90s, tagged up with Wes Anderson, and just kind of shows up and stuff and just kind of built this like mythos to him that
Yeah,
didn't exist. And it's like he'll like I met Bill Murray once. I walked into his son's restaurant in Brooklyn and I shook his
yeah,
hand, and he was just like, "Oh, thanks for coming in. Nice to meet you guys." And like that was it. And then obviously we're like trying to like watch him out of the side of our eyes the whole time.
yeah.
And then he walks away with like two women half his age. I was like, you know what, Bill? Like,
Hats off to you.
good for you. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, Chevy is just an ego that continually withers away. Like I like feel like in his brain he's still like the 28-year-old leading man that he thinks
Oh,
he is.
there totally is. There's like so many stories that Dan Harmon, the creative community, would have.
Who's also
Where he,
he's also another one, by the way.
yeah. They're both little contentious assholes. But he said that there would be like some scenes where where sometimes where like Chevy would come up to him on the set of Community, like you're writing Pierce wrong. Like I should be the one that's going after the hot girl too. Like he basically like wanted to be like the Joel McHale character. He's like,
Yeah,
oh, I should be getting these plot lines too. And it's like, do you not get it? You're like fat and balding and old now. Like
you're like
that
70.
that
Yeah,
time has passed, dude.
yeah. He
And
just
so to tie it all back though, and end our segment. Thank God something like this never happened to James Dean. Thank God we never saw James Dean get
yeah.
old. Actually, it feels fucked up in a way to say that,
No,
but
I. But again, I'm not talking about James Dean the person. I'm talking about James Dean the icon. Right?
The
Like
Scream
there's
persona,
the icon. It's the icon because
yeah,
it's beyond Scream persona. It's an Americana myth. James Dean.
yeah. He's like a Paul Bunyan at this point for us,
Yes, seriously,
and
he's an
it
American like folk
never
tale.
never would have happened if we saw him like pop up in the 80s and 90s as just like a cranky old guy and something. If he was in Grumpier Old Men with Jack Lemmon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on that note, this is Rebel Without a Cause.
Explode. The pressure keeps building.
Yeah, somebody get him a knife.
And building. And building.
You're tearing me apart!
When he blows, who will be caught in the blast? Rebel Without a Cause. 10:05 p.m. Eastern on Superstation WTBS, Monday.
All right. Rebel Without a Cause is a 1955 American coming-of-age melodrama film directed by Nicholas Ray. The film stars James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mineo, Jim Backus, Ann Duran, Corey Allen, William Hopper, and Nick Adams. It also marks the film debut of Dennis Hopper, albeit in a minor role. We are on a Dennis Hopper kick right now, dude.
This is there's two things about this month. One is it's Dennis Hopper month apparently, and two, it's Cool Jacket month because Christian Slater had a hell of a jacket in True Romance too. So
Oh well, believe me, I have a segment where we're gonna go into a segment.
yeah,
Believe me, we're gonna talk about the jacket. The jacket. It was filmed in the then recently introduced CinemaScope, and if I'm not mistaken, is that the format that Paul Thomas Anderson used in? Or no, that was Panavision.
CinemaScope. I feel like that might have been used in.
No, it was Panavision in One Battle After Another. Um, Focusing on emotionally confused suburban middle-aged class teens, the film offers both social commentary and an alternative to previous films depicting delinquents in urban slum environments. The film was an attempt to portray the moral decay of the American youth, critique parental styles, and explore the differences and conflicts between generations. namely the interbellum generation and the silent generation. The title was adopted from psychologist's book. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we went through all this. Okay, already.
Yeah. So to answer your question in terms of CinemaScope, first of all, La La Land was using some Panavision cameras too. So what'd you think about Robot Cops? You said you've seen this before, right?
I had seen it before. I think I saw it after La La Land. If I'm gonna be honest, it's like I loved that movie so much, and it played such a big like. I'd heard of Rebel Without a Cause. Obviously, it's a huge like. You go into any film history, if you look at any list of classic American films, this one is going to show up. My grandfather talked about it. Like it's a very famous movie. There is that hard thing where you go, like you're a teenager. Do you really want to watch a movie about teenagers in the 1950s?
How's this going to relate?
How am I going to relate to this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's hyped, and it is a melodrama for sure. The ending really stuck with me, but I kind of forgot everything else. Like I remembered the beginning and the ending, and I kind of forgot everything else in between. Like when we were texting about this, it's insane how this is the blueprint of like, especially now having watched so many more films and just kind of. I feel like for us, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you feel similarly. Like after doing this podcast for however many episodes, and being able to talk about movies the way we're able to, like you're able to like watch an older movie like this now and just go like, oh, this is the blueprint. This is this is the blueprint of every teen movie you've ever watched.
Well, it is interesting when you go back almost like the source material, and this feels like it, because like we're saying earlier at the beginning of the pod, this was the beginning of the teen culture era, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
1950s.
This is Elvis. Jailhouse Rock is coming out. You know,
all this at the same time, and you have this movie that comes out like probably it was like it's shocking. It didn't like light the box office on fire from what I could tell on Wikipedia.
From what I can tell on Wikipedia, when I looked at it, it made 4.5 million, and I saw somewhere on the Wikipedia article that equates to $84.7 million today. So that's pretty good.
Okay, so never mind. I wasn't counting
equivalent
inflation.
to 84.5 million in 2024.
Yeah,
it grossed $7,197,000.
Yeah.
So whatever they had, that was just domestic. This is with international.
So, but regardless, though, it's just like you see this movie, and I'd never seen a James Dean movie before. Which, granted, like we said, there's only 3, so there's not a lot to pick from. But like, he's one of those guys that like I maybe have seen clips over the years of like this movie, like through cultural osmosis on like random clip shows, like best movies. But I never really knew it. And it's you watch James Dean in this movie, and you immediately get it. You're like, this guy had everything going for him. He should have been a superstar right after this moment, and it's a shame
he
that
never
like,
he never got the moment. I think like it's almost we have to like define what makes him work so well, and especially still speak to us 71 years later.
Well, I think in a way, I mean, it's the kind of thing of Brando too, that Brando and that whole generation of actors really influenced people. And Brando's method was much more like method and much more like, again, the characters, the scene and stuff like that. And you're seeing James Dean in that scene towards the end of the movie where he's talking to his dad, and he's talking to his mom about how he has to go turn himself in. James Dean's playing Jim
Stark.
Jim Stark. And he pretty much like ran some kid off the road. They played a game of chicken, and he jumped out. The other kid couldn't.
Do you think that's his fault?
No,
it's not.
No,
I mean,
it's not.
The movie is insane. But this movie is insane, by the way.
I do understand the guilt though, being like, oh, like he wouldn't have done that game. It wasn't for me. But then he tells like his parents that like this kid died. It's my fault. I gotta confess. I gotta go to the police. And like his parents are like telling him about how like this is gonna ruin your life. And he goes on to his parents, but his mom was never really there, doesn't really care. And the acting like tour de force in that moment is amazing. It still plays off the screen. Where, like, really all you need at the end of the day is good acting, and then you have good acting in this movie. You don't need anything like that much different than just a good movie star in this moment, and like the whole like tearing me apart. I was thinking of like what it came from and what I was like, why did I know this like you tear me apart thing from? I didn't realize Tommy Wiseau doing a terrible impersonation of
Mm-hmm.
James Dean in the room came from that. But and still, you come back to source material and you're like, I get why that like hack like it was like, oh, let me imitate the best actor I know.
Can I make a connection also? Sorry, this just came into my brain.
Hmm.
Um, Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3, um, which when they sort of just make Marty McFly's like whole personality trait about being a chicken,
Hmm.
like that's just pulled straight from this.
Yeah. And it is cool, like the different little moments of this movie. We talked about 'em at the beginning. I want to touch upon this now. Dennis Hopper is in this movie, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the second movie in a row we've covered by Dennis Hopper. And that other movie we covered was released like 40 years later in 1993, I think.
Yeah.
So it's insane the career longevity you have, where like he pretty much just like showed up as like just a random goon, but you can still feel his presence. It's like the epitome of the example of you didn't know what was riding on your bench right
Mm-hmm.
here. We're like, this is
Mm-hmm.
the equivalent of like the Nuggets when Jokic was a rookie and they didn't have him start majority of the games. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, dude, like now you have the MVP on your bench.
This is
You have a,
this is Justin Turner on the 2013 Mets, and then they trade him to they cut him to the Dodgers. The Dodgers
yeah,
pick him up, and he becomes this like superstar third baseman. There's so many sports analogies we could make.
but still, his role is really just goon, but he's still in the presence in the movie where like he's menacing. You can see it happen, and it makes you almost wonder like what the James Dean feature of this would have been, because I could have seen James Dean being like an action star, like kind of almost have a career that Steve McQueen had. I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
would have been definitely his like type of thing where like Dennis Hopper goes from being like a nameless goon and like pretty much a random character. He gets Easy Rider, blows up, and he becomes a fixture in 90s and 80s cinema because people saw Rebel Without Cause, people saw Easy Rider and be like, I want to get that guy back in. And James Dean probably would have had, can you imagine the James Dean like Tarantino role? It's an old
Hmm.
man.
Do you? I'm trying to think. Would he be Would he be the De Niro character in Jackie Brown?
He
Or
would have
be
been too old by
too
that
old? Do you
point.
think? Tarantino, to his credit, doesn't really do a ton of old people in his movies. And like I can't
Mhm.
say like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like James Dean would have been dead by then probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you have to think of his early stuff. Like maybe he's an old guy in Reservoir. Like I don't think he would be in a Tarantino movie. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be straight up. I feel like he'd be more like imagine James Dean as the Colonel James in Boogie Nights.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're having some historic casting what ifs right now. We're just gonna
Throwing them out there.
should we
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
throw out some iconic '90s movies and just see what sticks?
Yeah. Yeah. You could have had him as like in Seven in the Morgan Freeman role. You know, he might have been a little too old.
Might have been a little too, but
But there is an edge to this movie that like still plays modern. And sometimes when especially this was right within the like code authority era where
the
like
end of
things
it's heading towards the end of the Hays Code. But yeah,
yeah, and towards the end of the Hays Code, but like it's still within that where like you had so many moments of like um movies that just felt sanitized at the time and too squeaky clean and or like not real
yeah,
things. This movie has some real depth to it, and it has in a way like one of the first gay characters in like a movie during the Hays Code.
It's the first gay teenager for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and in Sal Mineo as John Plato.
Uh,
uh and
yes, Sal Mineo even commented on this. Where he said he noted in a 1972 interview that Plato Crawford was intended to have been gay. Speaking to Bose Hadley, it says, it makes sense that Plato was killed off. He was, in a way, the first gay teenager in films. You watch it now, you know he had the hots for James Dean. You watch it now, and everyone knows about Jimmy's bisexuality, so it's like he had the hots for Natalie Wood and me. Ergo, I had to be bumped off out of the way. That's a quote from the actor. I didn't know if James Dean was bisexual. I don't know that part about his life. Or if the character was. I guess I could see it. Like he's just kind of effort. I can't tell if that's like flirting or just effortless charm with everybody. But like Plato Sal Mineo has the hots for James Dean the second he lays eyes on that
You
dude.
see it. It's just like one of those things. Like they always talk about guys want to be friends with him and like girls want to fuck him. It's like I think everyone just wanted to fuck James Dean.
Yeah, man. It's really hard to like. I feel like for a younger audience and maybe people who don't have an appreciation for history to be like, this guy is effortlessly like the coolest guy you've ever seen.
Mhm.
He is the coolest guy you've ever seen in this movie.
Just the fucking like fact that he has a red jacket, a thing that's been like popularized in popular culture, and no one's put off a jacket better than James Dean. Right? You pull it off and you see it, and you're like, Jesus Christ! Like this guy like has so much charm just from this one costume choice.
Okay,
And
Kami, I'm gonna do this to you now because this is a segment idea. We're gonna do the movie Jacket Hall of Fame.
okay,
We're doing this right now, right here, right now.
Okay.
My top 4 is number 1 is in the Indiana Jones leather jacket. It is just the most iconic leather jacket of all time. Like I think this is number 2. I think this is like safely number 2. I think if we're gonna let's just call it Mount Rushmore style. Number 3, I want to say the black trench coat from The Matrix. Up until from 1999 till 9/11, essentially, that was the style of the time. Kind of crazy when you think about it.
Mhm.
And then number 4, I'm gonna go with the Drive jacket. Ryan Gosling
Easily
in
up there.
Drive, the Scorpion. Maybe it's not iconic enough, but I feel like it's an all timer. Do you have anything that you would like to add to this list?
I do want to also add the Robert De Niro and Taxi Driver army
Yeah.
jacket.
Oh, you know what? We're bumping, kicking
Yeah.
Drive off the list there. That Taxi Driver jacket's going to go there over that. So
Arnold in the
Indiana
leather
Jones.
jacket in Terminator 2.
So see,
It's good.
yes, it's good. The jacket itself just doesn't stand out. You know what I mean? Like there has to be like something to the something else. It's just a black leather jacket.
Yeah. All right. So another one I'd also say then would be there's 2 more I can think of. I don't think you mentioned these 2. Maverick, Top Gun.
The bomber, absolutely.
The bomber leather jacket right there, and then Tyler Durden, Fight Club, another red leather jacket right there.
I remember spending like $30 on a prop jacket, on that prop jacket on eBay in like 2013. That was my Halloween costume that year, and I did like spiked my hair. I did like the bloody thing on the face and like the glasses, and then the cigarette that I never smoked because, but just like you had to have the cigarette, and then like going to the bars or whatever for Halloween, and people just being like, "What are you?" And I'm like, Tyler Durden, it's Fight Club, and they're just like, I don't know what that is, and I'm like, oh god. But yeah,
Hey, there's 2 more I also want to throw out. Where or one more actually. We both were him for Halloween. Marty McFly.
the
Even though
puffer,
it's kind of more of a vest, but it's a puffer
the jean
jacket. I think that
puffer,
is,
it's a combo. It's a combo.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's second tier. I think that's second tier.
Okay. For
I think
out.
I will
but
say
James,
this.
James Dean's right there in there.
I think James Dean wears his the best.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I don't think anybody wears it better. If that makes
It
sense.
literally like, it's almost like a playbook of like how to be a superstar. Like you just gotta look good in a cool jacket. I mean, like Chris Pratt had that in Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's just like, all right, that guy looked, and now you're gonna be a superstar.
I mean, it's like a mix of like the Matrix jacket with this one just kind of like tied together. It just takes like that long coat, like the trench coat style, and just adds that like red color from here. Another thought I wanted to have, and I think this is very hard for us to judge here because we have a lot of conversations about cinematography, and this movie's absolutely beautiful in the CinemaScope. It's very hard for me to judge what is good cinematography in the like what did bad cinematography in a color movie look like in the 1950s? Like what was that discernment? Because every movie you watch with like this Technicolor like all these like new ways of processing film and color is just like it blows my mind that this is what movies used to look like.
when you think about it, outside of like maybe Ed Wood for the most part, like any movies from the 1950s that have survived on culture are the ones that like are the legends. Like, this movie, like
Yeah,
Streetcar Named Desire, stuff like that,
that's
or
black and
they
white.
keep
Yeah,
on going on.
and there's a lot of black and white in there too, though. Like Sunset
But
Boulevard,
I think that,
black and
like,
white.
if I do have to think of, like, movies that, like, didn't blow me away with, like, cinematography that I've seen from that era, stuff that was just in closed sets, and, like, you could very
Hmm.
t tell it's a closed set, and, like, I watch something like Hitchcock's a master, but I watch, like, Dial M for Murder, and that all just takes place in an apartment, and it's shot well, but it's just like, alright, it's somewhat static or something with the camera, where you're not moving around that much, and I feel like people are starting to get it a little bit more where, like, you watch something, like, from the 1930s, like Frankenstein, for example, they just pretty much or Dracula, which we covered, they pretty much just plot the
Hmm.
camera, keep it straightforward.
It was a stage play. It was they just
Essentially, is yeah, and I think that you still had some vestiges of that, when you get to the 1950s. This is an exception. This one is, like, really just dynamic. Even, like, the stuff of, like, the planetarium scene.
hmm.
That alone is very just, like, spellbinding, it takes you away. And it made me think of, like, when the last time I went to a planetarium was, because like, maybe I should go to one again. That seemed like a rock.
Yeah, it seems like a good time.
Yeah, yeah,
Seems like a
seriously.
great time.
Take some edibles, go to a
I,
planetarium.
I wonder if that's just part of getting older is when you're like these things like if you're 22 being like, hey, you want to go to the planetarium on the weekend and be like, no, I'm going to a bar and I'm drinking beer. Okay,
Yeah,
excuse me. And now
now in our 30s.
you're just like, that sounds absolutely awesome. Just like look up at the cosmos, like learn a little bit about constellations, some planet locations.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds kind of sick, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's like, I don't wanna go back to school when you're younger, and you're like, "Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that."
Yeah, no,
No,
exactly.
in that scene, it's just like the whole entire thing of like the deep philosophical like things of like, oh, like, all of this could go away. The earth is down in like 60,000 years or whatever it is.
Well,
Um,
it's weirdly a metaphor for the movie itself,
yeah.
especially Plato, and just kind of like a shooting star. And then also in a dark way, it's a metaphor for James Dean, is it not?
Well, this is what shocked me more than anything. I thought that James Dean was gonna die at the end of this movie. I thought that was the whole thing of the movie that like he just like it goes out in a blaze of glory or something. And maybe it's
No.
one of those things that like I confused the legend of
Hmm.
like James Dean himself and with like the character stuff like that. I thought it was like, oh,
So,
it been an ironic thing. Like
so,
almost
so James Dean, if you don't know how he died in a car crash. He was very into motorsports and racing. He owned a 1955 Porsche 550 Spider, and went off the road and he died. Like he slammed into the passenger side of a four, resulting in Dean's car bouncing across the pavement onto the side of the highway. His passenger was thrown from the Porsche, while Dean was trapped in the car and sustained numerous fatal injuries, including a broken neck. So, like, not good, but it's also kind of like the lifestyle. Like, it. Think about it like this: this guy dies in a car crash, and then in this movie, the famous stunt of this movie is James Dean in a race to the edge of a cliff
yeah.
playing chicken.
We call that a Paul Walker special now these days.
Yeah, yeah. But
Unfortunately.
like, also, can we talk about that car race scene? I,
Exhilarating. I mean,
exhilarating.
when you talk about cinematography, the way they lighted it up, this
Hmm.
movie has great use of lighting throughout. And this is one that like really stands out where like, they have like pretty much Natalie Wood, who's fantastic in this movie. Just like being like the basically the girl that like starts the race, like the rally girl. And she's the one that starts everything. And she's pretty much lit like by all these car lights over and over again. It
Hmm.
creates like almost like heavenly effect. And you see it like from up above, and you're like, "Oh my god, that's a spellbinding right there."
It's spellbinding. Like
Yeah,
that moment when like they turn on the car lights and it's just those first two, and then it's just that wide shot and boom, 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 and you go, oh, okay, it's on.
yeah.
It's seriously on.
It gets you in the moment where it just like shows you like these are like people just like very much experiment with the art form at that point, and it shows like how amazing it can be when like you have like lit it well and
Yeah,
whatever.
when you think of like movie moments, like what can this medium do that nothing else can do?
Mm.
That it like you could write that eloquently on a screenplay, but You can write that eloquently in a book, in a
Um,
novelization, but you can't capture it, can you? You
yeah.
can't capture that.
This guy who did cinematography, his name was Ernest Haller. I want to shout him out real quick because there's one huge. He was pretty much just like a workhorse. He did like a ton of filmography over the years. He's like been around since the 1920s. He even was involved with Gone with the Wind. It's a big
Ugh,
one that he's involved with.
that's another.
That's one that we're gonna have to cover eventually too.
You're gonna piss me off with a horror movie.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. Like, I want to cover Gone with the Wind. I just don't really want to watch it again.
I got the DVD recently for my mom's because like I just like grabbed some old DVDs and I was like, oh God, I'll take that. But again, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, that is
It's
like
quite literally
3.
it's 4 hours.
Oh God. Well, also like some other movies that Ernest Haller has done, like just from famous ones, got the one, like I said, Mildred Pierce, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That movie is shot fantastically too. So this is like the top of the top guy who like went after it. And it's funny about this movie was basically this film production. This was filmed from March 28th to May 26th in 1955, a year before James Dean died, or the year that James Dean died, rather. But production began. WB Warner Brothers was like, "This is a B movie project, so let's use black and white film stock." Then Jack L. Warner, the head of Warner Brothers, realized James Dean was a rising star and like pretty much like on the rise. He's a fucking shooting star. He's a hot property. He immediately was like, "Okay, this is being filmed in color stock immediately." And then they reshoot like portions of this movie in color just to take advantage of the fact that they're like, okay, like what are we doing here? Like, come on, we need to shoot James Dean in the best format possible. And it shows and it plays off. And I feel like Ernest Haller is probably a big part where they're like, let's go after the guy who shot Gone with the Wind. Let's just do it. And he was nominated, Ernest Haller, just to point it out, he was nominated for best cinematography at the Oscars 7 times. Just insane.
That's a Roger Dawkins run right there.
Yeah, Roger Deakins. Yeah.
Deakins. I knew it as soon as Dawkins came out. I was like, Deakins. Santa Monica High School makes a famous appearance here. Maybe its first appearance here. Do you know some of the other famous movies that this has been featured in? There is another one. There is one movie that we have covered on this podcast.
It's been
also
filmed at
uses
high
this
school.
setting. You're gonna kick yourself.
Heathers?
No.
Scream?
No. I'll give you one more guess.
Trying to think what high school movies we've done. She's All That? I don't know.
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Fast
fuck.
Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah.
The Graduate.
Okay.
The Way Back. The Edge of 17. Cruel Intentions. 17 Again. That's one of the better high school shooting locations ever. Like that's a stacked resume right there. It's an incredible, and it starts with this movie. Because I was like,
the weird thing about this movie,
look at the exterior.
you get it immediately, like, and you get it immediately, like, oh yeah. It's a weird thing. Like we talked about James Dean having a mythical figure, but he's not the only one in this movie that has died in like weird fucking circumstances. Natalie Wood
you're stealing my points here. You're stealing my points here.
Yeah,
you're stealing what I want.
Natalie Wood pretty much just like is like one of those people that like you see the scenes. Like for those who don't know, Natalie Wood has died under very mysterious circumstances. She drowned on a boat with Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken. Drowned is the official term. Like, so we don't know everything that happened right there to this day.
Well, there is the belief that she was pushed off the boat and killed. It is also referenced in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Cliff Booth and his wife. Like that was a very clear Natalie. That wasn't a subtle Natalie Wood homage, was it?
No.
In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this is like a very famous disappearance and murder. Or I guess it's just a drowning, but it's most likely a murder. And Christopher Walken was on that boat, which is insane.
Yeah, weird to think about. But then also like you have like Sal Menino. I didn't even know this until just now. He was stabbed to death in like 1976 when he's like in his like late 30s. It's like these three guys just like immediately that were like three people that were big parts of this movie, the top three build just all died, and it creates just like again another just like a legend about this movie where like you see Natalie Wood and James Dean, and it's insane that the two of them are sharing scenes together on the scenes together. It's like both these people died in the like most wild ways possible. You wouldn't expect it at all from a Hollywood star. Neither of these people got to be old.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of goes back to the planetarium thing that we mentioned. That mythos, like that shooting star of the world ending, like it's ominous that it's there. But do you think if all three of them were still alive today, because realistically, by their birth years, they'd be like 85, 90 years old. They'd be somewhere in that range.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think this movie like still has the legs if all three of them are still alive?
I think that you out of anyone, you need James Dean to be the one. This is so grim to talk about, but I feel like with
No,
James Dean dying, I
it,
feel like
it's sad, but it's like
no,
it's
but literally James Dean dying like probably just like made this movie into a whole other tier or just like stuff like that. Where like you have again like Stand By Me is another one like this where it's just like, oh my god, like this guy like died, a big thing. The only one other person I can think of is like Anton Yelchin, but he wasn't the same tier of those two guys.
so there's only one that I can think of. I'm surprised you didn't think of this because we lived through this. Heath
Yeah.
Ledger,
Oh, Heath Ledger. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where Heath Ledger is the Joker. Because like I didn't know at the time, like people were complaining about Heath Ledger being cast as the Joker online. I'm like I didn't follow it closely at all in middle school or whatever.
It was all
Um,
just like gay jokes about Brokeback Mountain. Like that's like it.
yeah, but like he was a big star, and then he dies like 4 or 5 months before the movie comes out, and like the trailer
Mhm.
drops, and it's just like, whoa, I didn't know you could do this with that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know because like comic book movies were very like campy, pulpy, kind of like you didn't know you could do this like dark, gritty thing with it. And then it's like, oh yeah, Heath Ledger becoming the Joker led him down a path of drugs, and he died. Like that was the story, and then it became the biggest movie, maybe the biggest movie of the 2000s. Like
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of if
Very arguably.
arguably, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Lord of the Rings, that maybe maybe like there's obviously a lot of big movies in there, but I feel like when I'm just talking about like apex blockbusters, like I feel like Lord of the Rings or that. Like I guess you could say Iron Man for what it led to in the 2010s, but I don't think it was that big at the time
But
when you didn't have
Iron Man at the time didn't have like the cultural cachet. I remember like trying to get my friends to see Iron Man 2 and none of them wanted to see it at the time. And we were all in high school.
yeah. Um, it didn't have that culture. It gets looked back on in that lens, and a lot of movies do. But like having lived through it, it was a lot of like a lot of the movies that came out were like maybe Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, yeah.
That first one was huge too.
Well, for a lot of people, like Iron Man felt like almost like, or like it was comic book movies at the time were like Daredevil or something like that, or the
Mhm.
Fantastic Four movies. Where it's like they're fun kids movies, but they're not great movies. And it wasn't until later that Iron Man had
It,
the
w-
whole thing.
it wasn't until The Dark Knight when it was like, oh, you can do something more with this. Like there's more subtext and layer to these kind of stories that you can tell. But that's enough of that. But just the Heath Ledger is the only kind of connection I can
Yeah,
make of like,
but even then, we had like at least like a decade plus with like Heath Ledger.
mhm,
So, but again, yeah, this movie just plays so well. And the ending of this movie, I want to talk about it, like the lighting on that of them going into the police station, or not in the police station,
into the planetarium again.
the planetarium again, and just how it's like using like darkness so well and shadows so well in a way that's like very like thrilling and just like oh my god, like you don't expect like there's so much lighting and
Mhm.
it's shot so well. It just blows you away.
So what? So Plato's character he's like very tragic in this story. He's falls in love with Jim Stark immediately after
Mm.
seeing him. Jim Stark just moves to this town. We've like barely talked about the movie, by the way.
Yeah, I realized that. Yeah, yeah.
We
We're not.
barely talked about this movie. Um, so quick plot recap because we're not going to go on for too long about this. Moves to this town. He's clearly troubled. Like he in the drunk tank with Natalie Wood's character and Plato's character. Plato's character doesn't have his parents. He ends up being like the really primary driving force of that ending,
Mm.
where they go to the abandoned mansion. Fun fact: that abandoned mansion, Tommy, it's been featured in another famous movie.
Sunset Boulevard?
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah, I can see that.
that's the mansion, yeah. And it was destroyed 2 years later for an anonymous bank building. Should have been a historical landmark. That abandoned
Yeah.
mansion. Um, but like I felt like it's got this subtext of this like kind of suicidal like teenager, right? Like this invincibility of a teenager, right? You're that age, you think you can live forever.
Mhm.
I think the thing that I really loved the most about this was after the car crash, after the knife fight, James Dean in that great breakdown to his parents, wanting to turn himself in. He goes to the police station. He doesn't do it, and then they go to the abandoned. Him and Natalie would go to the abandoned mansion. Plato meets up with them. They let in. They hang out. The goons that think that James Dean has ratted on them are chasing them. They find him at this place here. But it's interesting that it explores the parental relationships, right? Like
Mm.
it's very, especially for 1950s, like the dad is the stern figure, but not in James Dean's house. He's like this very submissive, like he's wearing the apron, he's doing all these things where he just doesn't respect his father
Mhm.
at all. So it's like this rebellion against authority.
Well,
Like now,
the movie does really feel extremely rebellious in a way. Where
hmm
like maybe now if you watch it, like you're like, oh, this isn't that much, but like you think of 1950s and like how conformity filled the 1950s are known for in their legacy, and this movie comes out that questions parental authority, and like I can imagine like so many people, like literally, there's a talk in the DVD special features in the beginning of this movie, when they're talking and they said like, some people like did not want us to have this movie screened. Like some theaters were like worried about it being like, oh, this is a movie where kids are questioning parental authority and going on these like wild like chases and stuff like that. We don't want to influence our kids that way. So it's just like insane that this movie was able to get away with this. Again, I thought
I,
the Hays Code would have squashed something like
I mean,
this.
it was censored in Britain with
Okay.
release scenes cut. Most of the knife fight was cut and not shown until 1967. The film was banned in New Zealand
Yeah.
out of fears it would incite teenage delinquencies, only to be released on appeal the following year with scenes cut and an R16 rating. It's also banned in Spain, where it had to be smuggled into the country for private screenings and not officially released until 1964. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to look at it now in our modern lens and having seen like a whole bunch of crazy stuff and going, yeah, this is tame. But it's not. It's not tame. Like the undercurrent of it is not tame. But there's that moment of clarity for James Dean's character where he wants to turn himself. Like he just wants to do the right thing. He's tired of like clearly clearly has problems, and it's just gone from place to place to place. He's tired of running. He's tired of his parents like not really raising him at all, and he wants to just turn himself in. And then that undercurrent, like because like he's kind of this like weird agent of chaos early in the movie, like getting into the knife fight, like kind of with Buzz's crew and these like the ruffians, hooligans, whatever. And when Plato goes insane, because Plato goes insane when he sees the check that his father who abandoned him sends that's just for child support, and the mother
Mhm.
had moved to Hawaii, so he's just raised by the housekeeper. Like it's a very sad situation. So he's just kind of like slowly going insane and mad over it, and takes the gun. Um, James Dean is so good in there, where he walks into that planetarium, talks Plato down off the ledge, gets the gun, takes the clip out, being like, "You're not going to hurt it." He's like, you know what I mean? Like that was not who that character was at the start of the movie. The
Yeah.
start of that
No.
movie's character is about the chaos, is about driving face first off that cliff. But he faced that cliff. He's faced reality. Like he's grown up in this movie,
Yeah.
and it's done so subtly and just so organically and naturally, which kind of contradicts my one problem with it is like Plato going insane. Just it feels extra, if that makes sense.
Well, it does almost feel like from the beginning of this movie that Plato has a few screwlesses to say the least. I
Hmm
mean, we're introduced to these characters. It's pretty much like Jim Stark is James Dean. He's taken to the juvenile detention center of a police station for
I
public
love the opening.
intoxication.
Can we talk about the
Yeah,
opening credits?
yeah,
What
yeah,
a
yeah. Opening
movie star moment with the title crawl of him just like rolling around in the gravel.
James Dean immediately just like looking cool as hell, but drunk as hell at the same time. But that's fantastic. And then you have the first like 10 minutes of this movie where like you're introduced to our three characters, and pretty much James Dean's just drunk as fuck. Judy broke curfew violation, and then Plato killed a litter of puppies. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, went away to the point that my girlfriend screamed out like she hates when dogs die. She's like, "What? No!"
Oh yeah, I couldn't. My girlfriend is the exact like. If
Yeah,
anything happened, like I was talking with her about Marty Supreme, and I had to because I was like I went to go see it, and she's like, it's 2.5 hours. If you want to see it again, I'll go with you. Like, okay, cool. And then the dog's not treated the best in that movie, and I had told her I was like, it's not abused, but it's not treated great in that movie. She's
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't want to see it then. So yeah, that is gruesome and disturbed, and it's clearly it's all this reaction to bad parenting really is like the cause of it. It's clearly taking whatever was in that psychology book that they adapted. They clearly are taking it from that. Where Judy, for example, her relationship with her father, they're sitting down for dinner, and she like goes to give her father a kiss, and he's just like, don't do that. You're too old to give me a kiss. Like it's like, where's the love? Like, are you kidding? It's your daughter.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
just it's very
It shows off like it shows off like pretty much like the differences between each of the parental structures these people had. That like pretty much like nobody's in there for Plato, and like pretty much Plato probably should be locked away if he killed like a thing of
a
puppies. Like that's
litter
a
of
red
puppies.
flag. Yeah, like
That's serial
that's
killer behavior.
yeah. So when you get that and you introduce the characters, like, okay, wow, this is what we're going for, and it almost makes doesn't shock you at the end that Plato like goes out in a blaze of glory because
Yeah,
there's no other
I
way
didn't
this
think.
character was gonna go.
hmm And he's obviously gay. Like when Judy and Plato first have their meet at the race, and he's just like, yeah, he's my best friend. He only speaks when he needs to. Meanwhile, they've talked for in the movie for 2 seconds. Like
Mhm.
he just has the hots for him. Um, that's very funny in that way. But I I think it's interesting that like James Dean's character coming face to face with death, quite literally, matured him and led him to just
He aged
kind of
like
like
20 years in that
and
moment.
just like led to did a hostage negotiation without coordinating with anybody else. And
Mhm.
and I was so impressed with the way that was done. It kind of blew me away that like that subtlety and nuance was in that script, and it just really elevated the whole movie for me.
Well, it does blow me away, and like the fact that like even the actors who were playing the parents, like the guy Jim Backus, he was known for Gilligan's Island. You still have heavy hitters in this movie, and it's crazy that for a movie that originally was thought of like as a B picture, just has so much star power coming off it. Where even like an eighth guy off the bench, Dennis Hopper, ends up becoming a superstar. Jim Backus becomes a lovable
First
sitcom
ballot Hall of
character.
Famer. Yeah,
Yeah. So when you go and go and again, it's like okay, like wow. It's fantastic. I mean, this movie just deep roster. Again, another deep
deep
roster
rush.
movie we're covering.
Well, we're cutting into it.
I am a star.
We'll continue the
I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
Who is the star of the show? I mean, we've talked about him the entire time. It's impossible not to. It's James Dean. This is
Yeah.
this is a perfect capture of the style of the time of the old world and the new world of that era kind of coming together here. It's
Mhm.
Elvis. It's covering Elvis mania. It's weirdly about the psychology of it too,
Yeah.
in a deep way. It's full of terrific performances, but this is James Dean's movie. This was a movie star arriving and gone before he even arrived.
Yeah, literally, it's a guy like dying right before he comes out. Well, yeah, but literally, I mean, this is the easiest one we've probably done in a while. Where it's just like, who's the star of the show? James Dean, the guy who became like a pop culture myth. He joined up in the ranks of like even like Michael Jackson in his heyday, of like Jimi Hendrix, of just like American Marilyn Monroe. These are American pop culture figures where you can see like a movie. If a movie wanted to do a cheap thing of like we're in the 1950s now, all they need to do is like show James Dean in a red jacket. It's like, okay, I get what era you're in now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, go back to Pulp Fiction. Like, there's definitely in that diner scene, right? Like, there's somebody
Yeah,
dressed up as James Dean there.
definitely,
It's
without
done.
a doubt.
I feel like we
But I do
covered a lot of the performances here.
the
Sorry, go ahead.
one we haven't touched upon at all is Everett Platt as Inspector Ray Fremrick. I think those are really good, like nuanced performance of a guy who like understands that something's like not exactly right with these kids, but not sure how to like be there
Mm-hmm.
for them. In a way, like where he like in an ideal world would have been like a surrogate father figure for these characters, especially for Plato and Jim. I feel like Jim he had the most relationship with, and the movie where he's able to talk to him back and forth. But it's just like a guy who's just like still an authority figure, but still not like perfect. The guy coming
Yeah.
to grips with that.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of subtle nuance to this movie, and it's a part of the reason why we're talking about it 70 years later, and I think they'll still talk about it 70 years from now. Like, I think this movie will have that kind of legs. I think it's the combination of things with, but I think James Dean's star power is the primary reason we will continue to talk about it. But it is a time capsule movie in a way of just capturing 1955 Americana in a middle class way.
Yeah, to the point that even
This
like
is
Grease like pretty
Mhm.
much like parodies this to an extent.
Oh yeah. I mean this
Yeah,
is Lynchian. This is the prototype of David Lynch. The white picket fence. What's underneath? Right? Blue
yeah.
velvet. What's underneath the
Mm.
dirt? Like this is that to a T.
And I forget if we like touched upon this, but I feel like that has to be part of why Dennis Hopper was cast in Blue Velvet. That definitely had to play a part. It's like, oh yeah,
Oh
like
yeah.
the lineage between movies.
I that you know what? I would have to look into that, but it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me one bit.
Ah, are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Okay, Tommy. Would Rebel Without a Cause work as a Muppet adaptation?
I think so. I mean, I could easily see Kermit. You have to sanitize a little bit. I could easily just see Kermit like dressed up as James Dean.
Leather jacket?
Right there, leather jacket, just Kermit in that leather jacket trying to pull it off. Miss Piggy's Natalie Wood, and then Plato is like either Fozzie or Gonzo. I feel like
He's
Gonzo
Scooter.
makes more sense.
He's got Gonzo. He's Gonzo. Yeah, you just have this like
Yeah.
great supporting cast of characters for it. I could see it, but it would have to be sanitized a little bit, maybe a little more slapstick. Like where, like I'm thinking of the car race. Like you have them shoot out of the cannons and have to pull the parachutes, and then the
Yeah.
other guy just like shoots, just like the Team Rocket's blasting off again and just shoots off into the sky. Well, like there's little ways to sanitize it out, but there's work you can do with it, and I'm sure if we dissected the Muppets, we could probably find homages to this movie because it's truly stunning to me how I like watching this and oh, this movie, that movie, this movie, that movie. Like everything is borrowed from this in some sense of the word.
There is a thing from it's Rizzo the Rat, and there's something called "Wrote It Without a Cause" that they did.
That's good.
It was in the Muppets 1998 calendar, and it's Rizzo the Rat dressed in a black leather jacket and then sporting a James Dean haircut.
Can you share it?
Yeah. Hold on.
Share
It's
share
almost
the share the
disappointing.
screen.
Yeah, it's almost disappointing that they didn't go with here, I'll put in the chat. That they didn't go with like Rizzo the Rat, like or wearing the red jacket thing. Hold on, how do I share screen?
It's fine. All right. While we're doing that review time, do you want me to give you while you get that ready? I'll give you my score out of 5 first.
Yeah, go for it.
So Rebel Without a Cause. is a interesting psychiatric look into the teenage mind, like the first real instance of teenage division, because children up until World War II just worked instead of, getting to rebel against the system. So it has this weird intersection, and a lot of times these movies were kids across the tracks, but this is the first time we're really seeing James Jeans Rodents Without a Cause.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so ridiculous. But it's the first time we're really seeing this kind of examined, and then you cross it with James Dean, shooting star, all-time performance, truly electric. When you hear about the mythos of it, and if you've heard the mythos of this and you've had that inkling of like, should I watch this movie? Like there's no way it could like James Dean couldn't have been that good. Like, watch it. It is effortless. It is one of the greatest performances you will ever watch captured on film. This is a 4 out of 5 for me. This is a great movie.
Yeah.
Beautifully shot. A weird time capsule of teenage life in 1950 in like a darker side of things. Like just maybe a little bit more realistic and more true to home than people would care to admit. Looking back on it, 4 to 5. Tommy?
Yeah, I'm shocked you didn't go higher, but this movie is there's a reason why we're talking about it so many years later. It's just like everything plays off the screen. James Dean is just such a magnetic performer that like it's tragic what happened, but it helps with this movie where it just like it gives it so much more of a legacy. Where we could have easily seen Steve McQueen, James Dean become a Steve McQueen type figure in the '60s or '70s. But we're robbed of that, and instead we get this one great performance. We get two other good movies too, but this is the shining star moment. And other thing is filled with just so many great little heat checks. Dennis Hopper is so much fun as like just a little like henchman that doesn't give a lot of lines, but everything about it is just like fantastic cinematography, lighting. I'm gonna go 4.5 out of 5. It's a movie that plays very modern in a way I didn't expect, and all it takes is just great acting and good direction.
Good direction. I feel like the acting's elevating the screenplay a little bit here, even though there are subtle moments that I really like in it. But
Mm.
it's a tour de force. It's iconic. Like, I think of American Graffiti, and I'm just like, yep, this borrows from that a lot.
Yeah.
It's there. All right, Tommy. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on social media. That is at Seen It Pod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And we're also on Bluesky at podseenit.bluesky.social. And while you're at it, leave us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us out, helps us grow the show.
Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week.